What happens when the silence of decades is finally broken? Princess Diana's niece, Laura Fellows, has stepped into the spotlight, sharing intimate and unexpected revelations that challenge the narratives we've come to know about the people's princess. Why did Laura choose to speak now? What truths has she revealed about the night that changed everything for her family and the world? And could her words reshape Diana's legacy forever? Let's dive into details. It's impossible to think of the British royal family without conjuring images of Princess Diana, the radiant, compassionate, and endlessly captivating figure whose legacy still casts a long shadow over the monarchy. From her fairy tale wedding to Prince Charles in 1981 to her tireless humanitarian work, Diana captivated hearts around the globe. Yet, for all her glamour and public adoration, her life behind the scenes was a stark contrast to the polished image the world adored. Her struggles with loneliness, betrayal, and relentless media scrutiny were laid bare in ways that few could have anticipated. But what if the full story of Diana's world has yet to be told? Among the lesser-known figures in Diana's orbit are her siblings, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, Lady Jane Fellows, and Charles Spencer. Each played a role in Diana's life, both publicly and privately, but they chose paths far removed from the spotlight that followed their sister. Jane, the quiet middle child of the Spencer family, often acted as Diana's confidant during turbulent times. Known for her discretion and composure, she rarely shared personal details, even after Diana's tragic passing. Yet her steadfast presence loomed large in the lives of Diana's sons, William and Harry, as they navigated their own paths in the wake of their mother's death. Diana's marriage to Charles had elevated the entire Spencer family into the global spotlight. Suddenly, their private lives became a matter of public curiosity, and maintaining a balance between privacy and public duty became increasingly difficult. Diana's sisters, particularly Jane, adopted a strategy of silence, shielding themselves from the ever-present cameras and tabloids. As Diana's fame grew, Jane quietly retreated further into the background, embracing her role as a mother and wife while steadfastly supporting Diana behind closed doors. It was during these years that Jane's niece, Laura Fellows, began to understand the pressures of living in Diana's shadow. The daughter of Jane and her husband, Lord Robert Fellows, Laura was largely spared the media frenzy that surrounded her aunt. Unlike William and Harry, Laura grew up away from the glare of the cameras, her childhood unfolding in relative peace. But despite this insulation, Laura was acutely aware of the emotional toll the royal spotlight exacted on her aunt and the entire family. In the early 1990s, the cracks in Diana's marriage to Charles became undeniable. Stories of infidelity and unhappiness began to seep into public view, and Diana's vulnerability became a focal point for both sympathy and scandal. Jane, though silent in the public eye, remained a steady source of support for her sister. It's said that she was one of the few people Diana felt she could trust during these difficult years. Yet even Jane couldn't shield Diana from the devastating fallout of her separation from Charles in 1992, and their eventual divorce in 1996. As Diana's life entered a new chapter, she seemed determined to chart her own course. Her humanitarian work took center stage, and she began to use her platform to shed light on global issues. But with her newfound independence came heightened scrutiny. Every move she made was documented, analyzed, and often sensationalized. And while Diana publicly championed causes close to her heart, privately, she struggled with the weight of it all. Through it all, Jane stood by her sister, offering quiet encouragement and unwavering loyalty. By 1997, Diana appeared to have found a semblance of peace. Her relationship with Dodi Fayed and her commitment to humanitarian work suggested a new beginning. But this sense of renewal was tragically cut short on the night of August 31, 1997, when the news broke that Diana had been involved in a devastating car accident in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris. The world was plunged into shock and mourning as the full extent of the tragedy unfolded. For Laura Fellows, the night of Diana's death marked a turning point. Just a teenager at the time, Laura had been asleep when the phone rang in the early hours. Her mother's voice, heavy with fear and disbelief, jolted her awake. Something terrible had happened, but the details were scarce. As Laura sat glued to the television, watching the chaotic updates filter in, a wave of helplessness washed over her. The confusion and conflicting reports only deepened the sense of dread. When the confirmation came that Diana had not survived, Laura felt a mix of shock and anger. How could someone so vibrant, so full of life, be gone in an instant? And why did the initial reports feel so disorganized and unclear? For a family that had long guarded its privacy, this public spectacle of grief and speculation was almost too much to bear. As Jane and her sister Sarah prepared to fly to Paris to bring Diana's body home, Laura was left behind, grappling with the enormity of the loss. The images of her mother and aunt standing solemnly with Prince Charles at Diana's funeral procession remain etched in her memory, a poignant reminder of the dignity and grace they displayed in the face of unimaginable grief. Even in those darkest moments, Jane's quiet strength shone through, a testament to her resilience and love for her sister. But for Laura, the grief was complicated by the public nature of Diana's death. The world's mourning felt intrusive, the media frenzy relentless. It wasn't just the loss of an aunt, it was the loss of a family member who had been reduced to a headline. The pain of that night would stay with Laura for years, shaping her perspective on her family's place in the public eye and the burdens of legacy they carried. In the days following Diana's death, the world seemed to freeze in collective mourning. The outpouring of grief was unparalleled, with seas of flowers lining the gates of Kensington Palace and millions gathering in silent vigils across the globe. Yet, within the walls of Althorp, the Spencer family faced a far more personal reckoning. As much as the public revered Diana as the people's princess, to them, she was a sister, a daughter, and an aunt, whose absence left a profound void. For Laura Fellows, it was a loss that came with a painful duality. Grief for the aunt she adored and the growing realization that Diana's life and death would forever be a public spectacle. While the world celebrated Diana's compassion and charm, the media's relentless scrutiny of her personal life had taken a devastating toll. Laura had seen it firsthand during family gatherings when Diana would share glimpses of the pressure she endured. The paparazzi were unyielding, often waiting outside Althorp or following her on private visits. Even in moments of joy, such as attending her son's school events or relaxing with family, Diana was rarely free from the camera's glare. Laura often wondered how her aunt managed to maintain her grace under such suffocating conditions. For Lady Jane Fellows, the tragedy not only marked the loss of her beloved sister, but also thrust her into an unwanted spotlight. In the days leading up to Diana's funeral, Jane worked tirelessly behind the scenes, ensuring that the family's wishes were respected amid the royal protocols that dictated much of the arrangements. Her dignity and composure were evident during the service, where she delivered a heartfelt reading that resonated deeply with those watching around the world. Jane's quiet strength became a source of stability for William and Harry, who leaned on her and the rest of the Spencer family as they navigated the overwhelming loss. The funeral itself was a moment that crystallized the complexities of Diana's life. On one hand, it was a global event, with millions tuning in to pay their respects. On the other, it was deeply personal, a raw farewell from a family torn apart by grief. Laura, still in her teens, watched from the sidelines, her emotions swinging between pride in her aunt's legacy and resentment at the intrusiveness of it all. The relentless media coverage dissected every detail, from the guest list to the floral arrangements, leaving little room for the family's private mourning. As the years passed, the Spencer family began to wrestle with the weight of Diana's legacy. Althorp, her childhood home and final resting place, became a focal point for both remembrance and controversy. Charles Spencer, the 9th Earl Spencer and Diana's younger brother, faced the enormous responsibility of preserving her memory while maintaining the estate's financial sustainability. Public access to Diana's burial site was a point of contention, with some arguing for greater accessibility to honor her status as a global icon, while others, including Jane, believed in protecting the sanctity of her resting place. Within the family, these differing perspectives occasionally led to quiet tensions. Charles, known for his more modern approach, advocated for increased public engagement at Althorp to generate revenue and keep the estate thriving. Jane, true to her reserved nature, was wary of commercializing Diana's memory. Lady Sarah McCorquodale, the eldest sibling, often found herself mediating between her younger brother and sister, balancing their contrasting views while keeping the focus on Diana's humanitarian spirit. For Laura, these family dynamics were a microcosm of the larger struggles surrounding Diana's legacy. She watched as her mother and uncle debated how best to honor her aunt, their discussions often reflecting the broader societal divide between those who viewed Diana as a public figure and those who cherished her as a private individual. While Laura admired her family's dedication to preserving Diana's memory, she also grappled with her own conflicted feelings about the public's continued fascination with her aunt. In the years following Diana's death, Laura chose to maintain a low profile, avoiding the spotlight that had so relentlessly pursued her aunt. Unlike her cousins, William and Harry, who were thrust into public roles from a young age, Laura's life unfolded in relative anonymity. She focused on her education, eventually marrying and starting a family of her own. Yet, despite her efforts to live quietly, Laura was never far removed from the legacy of Diana. Family events, media anniversaries, and the enduring public interest in her aunt's story served as constant reminders of the indelible mark Diana had left on the world, and the unique pressures that came with being part of her family. Laura's relationship with William and Harry also evolved during this time. Though not as publicly visible as the bond between their mothers, Laura's connection to her cousins was rooted in shared experiences and mutual support. The three often found solace in each other, drawing strength from their familial ties. Laura admired the way William and Harry embraced their roles, carrying forward Diana's legacy through their own charitable efforts. At the same time, she understood the weight of the expectations placed on them, the unrelenting scrutiny that came with their positions. As William and Harry grew older and began to carve out their own paths, the dynamics within the family shifted. The brothers' increasingly divergent approaches to royal life became apparent, with William embracing his future role as king and Harry seeking a more independent existence. For Laura, who had always valued privacy and family unity, the growing rift between her cousins was deeply troubling. She sympathized with both sides, recognizing the pressures each faced while wishing for a reconciliation that seemed increasingly elusive. Throughout these years, Laura remained a steadfast presence in the Spencer family, often acting as a bridge between generations. Her own children became part of the royal narrative, with her daughter, Laura Lopes, being named as one of Princess Charlotte's godparents, a testament to the enduring bond between the Spencers and the royal family. Yet, despite these connections, Laura continued to guard her privacy fiercely, choosing to honor her aunt's memory through quiet acts of kindness rather than public declarations. However, the passage of time has a way of bringing new perspectives. In recent years, Laura has begun to reflect more openly on the impact of Diana's life and death, not just on the world, but on her own family. The media's portrayal of Diana as a flawless icon often feels at odds with the woman Laura remembers, a vibrant, compassionate individual who was also deeply human, with her own struggles and vulnerabilities. For Laura, breaking her silence is not about courting attention or revisiting old wounds. It's about offering a more nuanced understanding of Diana's legacy, one that honors her humanity as much as her heroism. As the years rolled on, Diana's legacy grew into something of a phenomenon, evolving far beyond her lifetime. Her name became synonymous with compassion, resilience, and an unshakable drive to make a difference in the world. But for those who knew her intimately, her family, her friends, this larger-than-life image of the people's princess sometimes overshadowed the complexity of the woman they remembered. Among the Spencers, the weight of safeguarding Diana's memory often felt like walking a tightrope, balancing public expectation with the deeply personal grief that never truly faded. For Lady Jane Fellowes, the challenges of this balancing act were compounded by her natural inclination to stay out of the limelight. Over the years, she remained a steadying presence in the family, offering quiet support to her nephews, William and Harry, as they navigated the minefield of public life. Jane was there for the milestones, from weddings to christenings, her reserved demeanor serving as a counterbalance to the media frenzy that seemed to accompany every royal occasion. Yet for all her efforts to remain in the background, Jane's influence on the Spencer family and her nephews could not be understated. It was during these years that the tension between public memory and private reality began to shape the dynamics within the Spencer family. The question of how best to honor Diana's legacy became a recurring point of contention, particularly between her siblings. Althorpe, the family's ancestral home and Diana's final resting place, was at the center of these debates. Charles Spencer, as the Earl and custodian of Althorp, faced mounting pressure to balance his duty to the family with the practicalities of maintaining the estate. Public interest in Diana's burial site remained high, with many advocating for greater access to the grounds. Charles, ever pragmatic, leaned towards modernizing Althorp to accommodate this demand. Lady Jane and Lady Sarah McCorquodale, however, were less enthusiastic about opening Althorp to the public. To them, the estate was more than just a historical landmark. It was a sanctuary, a place where Diana could be remembered privately, away from the unrelenting gaze of the media. Jane, in particular, felt strongly that Diana's memory should not be commodified, that her legacy was rooted in the causes she championed, rather than the spectacle surrounding her life and death. The resulting disagreements were not confrontational, but reflective of the broader struggle to reconcile Diana's dual identity as both a public figure and a private individual. For Laura Fellows, these family debates served as a poignant reminder of the complexities of carrying Diana's legacy. As she matured, Laura began to see her aunt's story not just as a source of inspiration, but also as a cautionary tale about the cost of fame and the vulnerabilities it exposed. Diana's life had been a paradox, a testament to the power of empathy and authenticity, yet also a stark illustration of how those same qualities could be weaponized against her. Laura often wondered how her aunt might have navigated today's world, where social media magnified scrutiny to an almost unimaginable degree. Despite these challenges, Laura took great comfort in the bond she shared with her cousins, William and Harry. While their lives diverged significantly, William embracing his role as the future king and Harry charting his own path, Laura remained a grounding presence for both. She admired their commitment to continuing Diana's humanitarian work, each in their own way. William, with his poised and dutiful approach, seemed determined to bring a sense of modernity to the monarchy, while Harry's more personal, hands-on style reflected his mother's unfiltered compassion. For Laura, these differences were not divisive but complementary, a testament to Diana's multifaceted legacy. However, as the years passed, the growing rift between William and Harry became increasingly difficult to ignore. What had once been a seemingly unbreakable brotherly bond began to show cracks, fueled by differences in priorities, lifestyles, and the pressures of royal life. For Laura, this estrangement was deeply painful to witness. She understood the unique pressures both men faced and sympathized with their respective choices. Yet she also recognized the profound impact their separation had on the family's unity, and by extension, Diana's legacy. Within the Spencer family, efforts to bridge this divide were met with varying degrees of success. Lady Jane and Lady Sarah, in their characteristic quiet ways, sought to act as mediators, encouraging dialogue and fostering a sense of familial solidarity. Laura, too, played a subtle but meaningful role, her connection to both brothers serving as a reminder of the unbreakable ties they shared. But the rift between William and Harry was more than just a family matter. It was a reflection of the larger tensions within the monarchy itself, a centuries-old institution struggling to adapt to a rapidly changing world. Through it all, Laura continued to maintain her privacy, choosing to support her family in ways that didn't attract media attention. Her decision to stay out of the spotlight was both a personal choice and a reflection of her deep respect for Diana's memory. Unlike many others in her extended family, Laura had no interest in leveraging her connection to the royal family for personal gain. Instead, she focused on her role as a mother, a wife, and a quiet advocate for the values Diana had embodied: kindness, empathy, and a commitment to making a difference. But even as Laura chose to remain in the background, the world's fascination with Diana showed no signs of waning. Anniversaries of her death, documentaries about her life, and the publication of tell-all books kept her story in the headlines, often reigniting debates about her relationships, her struggles, and the circumstances surrounding her death. For Laura, these moments were bittersweet, a reminder of the love and admiration Diana inspired, but also a source of frustration at the way her aunt's humanity was sometimes overshadowed by her mythology. It was this ongoing tension that ultimately led Laura to reconsider her silence. Over the years, she had watched as conspiracy theories about Diana's death continued to circulate, fueling mistrust and speculation. She had seen the impact of these rumors on her family, particularly on William and Harry, who had to endure constant reminders of the tragedy that defined their childhood. For Laura, the decision to speak out was not about seeking attention, but about setting the record straight, honoring Diana's legacy in a way that felt authentic and true to the woman she had known. Breaking her silence was not an easy choice. Laura understood the risks involved, the potential backlash from the media, the scrutiny from royal observers, and the inevitable comparisons to Diana herself. Yet she felt a growing sense of responsibility to share her perspective, to offer a more nuanced understanding of Diana's life and the impact her death had on those left behind. For Laura, this was not just about revisiting the past. It was about shaping the future of Diana's legacy, ensuring that it remained rooted in the values she held dear, rather than the spectacle that often surrounded her. As Laura began to speak publicly about her aunt, she found herself navigating a minefield of expectations and emotions. The world, still captivated by Diana's legacy, hung on every word. Laura's revelations weren't bombshells in the traditional sense. They weren't meant to shock or sensationalize. Instead, they offered something more profound, a glimpse into the human side of the woman who had been mythologized for decades. Laura's first step was to address the night that had forever changed her family. Until now, her memories of August 31st, 1997 had remained locked away, too painful and too personal to share. But as conspiracy theories and misinformation about Diana's death continued to swirl, Laura felt compelled to provide clarity. She spoke of the phone call that woke her in the early hours, her mother's voice trembling as she delivered the incomprehensible news. Laura recalled sitting by the television, staring blankly at the chaotic reports as they unfolded. The conflicting narratives, the wild speculation, it all felt like a cruel circus, one that robbed her family of the chance to grieve in peace. The anger Laura felt that night was something she carried with her for years. It wasn't just anger at the paparazzi or the reckless driving that led to the crash. It was anger at a system that had failed to protect Diana, a system that seemed more concerned with appearances than with the well-being of those it was meant to serve. Laura's frustration was compounded by the media frenzy that followed, turning a deeply personal tragedy into a public spectacle. Even in death, it seemed, Diana could not escape the relentless scrutiny that had plagued her life. As Laura shared these memories, she was careful not to point fingers or assign blame. Her goal wasn't to reopen old wounds, but to provide a more grounded perspective on the events that had shaped her family's narrative. She acknowledged the role of the paparazzi, the chaotic circumstances of that night, and the lack of coordination among officials. But she also emphasized the resilience her family displayed in the face of such overwhelming loss. Laura's words were measured, her tone reflective, as she painted a picture of a family doing their best to honor Diana's memory while grappling with the weight of her legacy. What struck many about Laura's account was its authenticity. Unlike the polished, media-trained narratives that often emerge from royal circles, Laura's words felt raw and unfiltered. She didn't shy away from the complexities of her emotions or the contradictions in her perspective. Yes, she admired her aunt deeply, but she also struggled with the way Diana's life and death had consumed her family's identity. For Laura, this duality was a constant source of tension. The pride she felt in being part of Diana's legacy and the frustration at the expectations that came with it. Laura's decision to speak out came at a time when the royal family was facing unprecedented scrutiny. The rift between William and Harry had become a global talking point, with commentators dissecting every detail of their strained relationship. For Laura, the tension between her cousins was deeply personal. She remembered a time when the two were inseparable, bonded not just by blood, but by the shared experience of losing their mother. Watching their relationship unravel was heartbreaking, a painful reminder of how Diana's absence continued to shape their lives in ways both visible and invisible. Laura's perspective on the brothers' rift was uniquely insightful. She understood the pressures William faced as the future king, the expectations that demanded he put duty above all else. She also sympathized with Harry's desire for freedom, his need to protect his family from the same forces that had haunted his mother. For Laura, the divide between the brothers wasn't about right or wrong. It was about two men trying to navigate their paths while carrying the weight of their shared history. In her conversations with those close to her, Laura often reflected on the lessons Diana might have imparted had she lived to see her sons as adults. She imagined Diana encouraging William to modernize the monarchy, to make it more compassionate and accessible. At the same time, she believed Diana would have supported Harry's decision to step back, recognizing his need for autonomy and peace. Laura's hope was that her cousins could find a way to reconcile, to honor their mother's memory, not just through their actions, but through their bond as brothers. But Laura's decision to speak wasn't just about family dynamics. It was also about reclaiming Diana's narrative from the layers of myth and speculation that had built up over the years. She spoke of Diana not as an untouchable icon, but as a woman of incredible strength and vulnerability. She shared stories of Diana's laughter, her warmth, her ability to make anyone feel seen and valued. These were the qualities that defined Diana for Laura, far more than the headlines or the controversies. One of Laura's most poignant reflections was on Diana's humanitarian work. She described how her aunt had taught her the importance of empathy, of using one's privilege to uplift others. Laura recounted visiting Diana's charities as a young girl, watching her aunt interact with people from all walks of life. These experiences left a lasting impression on Laura, shaping her own approach to life and service. While Laura's contributions didn't make headlines, she carried Diana's spirit in her own quiet way, supporting causes that aligned with her aunt's values. As Laura's revelations gained attention, they also sparked renewed interest in the Spencer family's role within the royal narrative. For years, the Spencers had maintained a careful balance, supporting William and Harry while staying largely out of the spotlight. But Laura's decision to speak marked a subtle shift, a willingness to engage with the public discourse around Diana's legacy. This wasn't about seeking the limelight. It was about ensuring that Diana's humanity remained at the heart of her story. Not everyone welcomed Laura's openness. Critics questioned her motives, suggesting that she was capitalizing on Diana's name. Others argued that her perspective, while valuable, didn't offer any new insights into a story that had already been told countless times. But for Laura, the act of speaking out wasn't about appeasing critics or proving her worth. It was about finding her voice, about honoring her aunt in a way that felt true to her own experiences. Laura's journey is a testament to the enduring impact of Diana's legacy. It's a reminder that the story of the people's princess isn't just about one woman. It's about the countless lives she touched and the family she left behind. As Laura continues to navigate the complexities of her role within this narrative, one thing is clear. Her voice, like Diana's, carries the power to inspire and unite, even in the face of adversity. Laura's decision to break her silence came with consequences she had anticipated but couldn't fully prepare for. While her revelations resonated deeply with many, they also stirred up a storm of criticism and speculation. The royal institution, famously reserved and guarded, was unlikely to welcome her candidness. Behind closed doors, whispers of discontent circulated, with some questioning whether her openness could complicate already strained family dynamics. Yet for Laura, the choice was clear. This was about more than just her personal catharsis. It was about ensuring that Diana's legacy remained rooted in truth and humanity. As her story unfolded in the public eye, Laura found herself navigating a delicate line. She was careful to honor her family's privacy, offering reflections that were deeply personal without delving into the kind of sensationalism that had so often surrounded Diana's narrative. Still, she couldn't ignore the weight of the expectations placed upon her. The world wanted answers about Diana's final days, about the family's inner workings, about the rift between William and Harry, and Laura, by virtue of her lineage, was seen as a potential source of clarity. But the truth was far more complex than any single account could capture. One of the most difficult aspects of Laura's journey was contending with the many narratives that had emerged about Diana over the years. Some painted her as a tragic figure, defined by her struggles and vulnerabilities. Others elevated her to near sainthood, a flawless icon of compassion and grace. For Laura, neither portrayal fully captured the woman she had known. Diana was all of these things and more, an intricate tapestry of strength and fragility, joy and sorrow, ambition and humility. By sharing her own memories, Laura hoped to add nuance to the story, to remind the world that Diana's legacy was not a static monument, but a living, evolving testament to the impact she had on those around her. As she spoke of Diana, Laura couldn't help but reflect on the lessons her aunt had imparted, both directly and indirectly. Diana had taught her the value of resilience, of finding light in even the darkest moments. She had shown her the importance of empathy, of meeting people where they were, and treating them with dignity and kindness. These lessons weren't just ideals for Laura. They were guiding principles that shaped her own approach to life. In her quiet way, Laura had carried these values forward, weaving them into the fabric of her relationships and her contributions to the causes she cared about. One of the most poignant aspects of Laura's reflections was her recognition of Diana's enduring influence on the younger generation. She spoke of how her own children had come to know their great aunt not just through family stories, but through the lasting impact of her work. From Diana's efforts to destigmatize conversations around mental health to her groundbreaking advocacy for those affected by HIV/AIDS, her legacy continued to inspire action and compassion. For Laura, this intergenerational connection was one of the most powerful aspects of Diana's story, a reminder that her life had sown seeds of change that would bear fruit for years to come. Yet for all the good that Diana's legacy had brought, Laura was keenly aware of the shadows it cast. The relentless scrutiny, the unending speculation, the pressure to live up to an almost mythical standard. These were burdens that had weighed heavily on Diana in life and continued to impact her family long after her death. Laura herself had felt their pull, the way they could distort even the most genuine intentions. But instead of letting these challenges define her, Laura chose to confront them with the same grace and determination she admired in her aunt. As she navigated the complexities of her role, Laura found solace in the support of her loved ones. Her mother, Lady Jane Fellows, remained a steadfast presence, offering wisdom and encouragement as Laura charted this new chapter. Her cousins, William and Harry, were another source of strength even as their own paths diverged. Laura spoke of how their shared memories of Diana created an unbreakable bond, one that endured despite the challenges they faced as individuals and as a family. In many ways, their connection was a living embodiment of Diana's hope for unity and compassion, a reminder that even in division, there could be moments of reconciliation. But the journey was far from easy. Laura's choice to speak out inevitably invited criticism, with some accusing her of seeking attention or exploiting her family's history. These accusations stung, but Laura remained resolute. She knew her reasons, and they were far removed from the tabloid narratives that often sought to simplify complex truths. For Laura, this was about reclaiming her voice, about ensuring that Diana's story was told with the depth and dignity it deserved. It wasn't about rewriting history. It was about enriching it, adding layers that might otherwise have been overlooked. As Laura's revelations continued to ripple through the public consciousness, they sparked broader conversations about legacy, memory, and the human cost of fame. Diana's story, though rooted in a specific time and place, resonated universally, touching on themes of resilience, vulnerability, and the search for purpose. For Laura, this universality was a testament to her aunt's enduring relevance, a reminder that even decades after her passing, Diana's light continued to shine. In the end, Laura's journey was not about closure, because some losses are too profound for closure to ever truly be possible. It was about connection, about finding meaning in the midst of grief, and ensuring that the love Diana poured into the world was never forgotten. For Laura, this meant embracing both the pain and the beauty of her aunt's legacy, holding space for the complexities that defined Diana's life. As she looked to the future, Laura felt a renewed sense of purpose. The world would always remember Diana as the people's princess, but Laura wanted to ensure that her aunt was also remembered as a sister, a mother, an aunt, and a friend. She wanted people to see the woman behind the crown, the human behind the icon. And in sharing her story, Laura hoped to inspire others to carry forward Diana's spirit of compassion, to build a legacy not of perfection, but of authenticity and love. For those who loved Diana, the journey of preserving her memory was one that required both courage and humility. It was about holding on to the truths that mattered, even when the noise of the world threatened to drown them out. And as Laura's voice joined the chorus of those who refused to let Diana's light fade, it became clear that her story was far from over. Diana's legacy, carried forward by those who knew and loved her, remained a beacon of hope, a reminder of the power of humanity to heal, inspire, and endure. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.